Am I even in focus today? It's hard filming on your own, you don't know. 3, 2, 1. Brothers, sisters, comrades, and friends, welcome to Bat Country. I was sober for 14 years, and then I had my first drink. I stole that line, I stole that joke from Delirium Dirk, and I stole it because, like a lot of what Dirk said, that felt personally true for me. Very few people have spoken to my own experience like Delirium Dirk did. Dirk was just a guy in recovery, who put some of his experiences to video, and those videos were very instructive. And the reason for that is that the honesty of Dirk's voice. And I'm sure that you can tell from my use of the past tense for that introduction that I learned from Slayer Sober and from Shades of Clarity's channels that Dirk is no longer with us. So it goes. And that's really the problem with recovery, is that we lose people. Good people. Happens all the time. And because most of us in the community are pretty fragile to start with, our nerves are very close to the surface, when we lose somebody from the community who had a personal and positive impact on our own recovery, well, it hurts a lot. It can hit us very hard. Such is the case with Delirium Durk for me. Now, this quick video is about recognizing good role models where and whenever you find them. What is it that makes someone a good role model? Should we even be looking for sober role models? What are the pitfalls? What I would like to do by the time we get to the end is have you watching this leave your own good examples, your own positive role models in the comments. People who aren't necessarily celebrities or famous, but people who are very good at talking about this stuff honestly and helpfully, usefully, people like Dirk. And then perhaps we can have a resource of really good potential role models for people new to sobriety. Before we get to that, I would just like to talk a little bit more about why people like Delirium Dirk are important. I think for me personally, there's no bullshit in Dirk. The way that he spoke and his overall personality, they kind of reminded me of like a sober Anthony Bourdain. Very confrontational, very provocative. But just through the clarity of his experience and his ability to tell his story, there's power in that in the same way that Anthony Bourdain commanded that same power. In fact, they even looked alike to some degree. They were both kind of miserly looking, grumpy old white dudes. And they had wisdom in their face, you know. And I don't know much about Dirk's personal life. I try not to pursue people I look up to that extent. I don't know much about the guy. But if I had to guess, I would guess he was a chef. He had that big chef energy, if you know what I mean by that. In fact, it was Dirk's matter-of-factness about delirium tremens that led me to commit my own experience of it to video. And that's a habit that I've been keeping up ever since. I found it to be very useful for my own sobriety to be talking openly about this stuff. And from the comments that I receive on my own little YouTube channel here, that Bat Country receives, it seems to be useful to other people too. And I owe all of that, at least partially, to Dirk's courage and honesty in his approach to talking about things that most of us don't. Most of us will acknowledge that we've had rock bottoms, but we don't bear it for the world to see in the way that Dirk does, or did. I owe a lot of my own recovery to Dirk, and any successes that I've had in sobriety so far, which are few, I owe to a guy that I've never met, a guy that I don't know much about, a stranger to me, purely because he talked about some of the things that I have also experienced. There's fellowship in that, community in that. When we lose people who have left a positive imprint on us. I think their legacy should be recorded in some way, and the positive stuff that they said, the useful stuff, should be taken and spread like apostles preaching the good word. Because if it can help me, which it did, it can help others. Having heroes in sobriety has proven for me to be a double-edged sword. On one side, on one hand, you might come across somebody who can serve as a kind of light at the end of the tunnel for you. If that person made it out, so can I. But the flip side is that you have to choose your heroes wisely and keep them at arm's length. It's best to keep a healthy, respectful distance from the people you look up to, because they might let you down. And if they let you down, they might take you down with them. What I'm saying is that there is no perfect sober person for us to look to and say, that is the person. If I can do what they're doing, I'm going to be okay too. It's very important that you recognize no one is a perfect fit for you. Everybody has flaws, and we have to be selective of what guidance works for us and ignore the rest. Chew the meat, spit out the bones. Don't put people on pedestals, because we are all very vulnerable people in this community, and all of us have a tendency to fall off that pedestal from time to time. Another hurdle that I faced in selecting people to look to for sober information is that a lot of my heroes from before I got sober are not exactly sober heroes. A lot of my role models from before I got sober are linked with alcohol and drugs to start with. There's Kurt Vonnegut, the writer, who had an addiction to prescription medication. Jaroslav Hasek, a Czech writer of the Bohemian style. Just a weird guy in all the most interesting way. He was the editor of a very snooty zoological magazine, a very academic publication in the Czech Republic, before the Czech Republic. And he was eventually fired from his job as an editor there because he was just inventing animals for months and was fired when he was discovered, and that is enough to make him a legend in my mind. Those are my people. Weird creatives on the edge of society. But Hasek was also a chronic alcoholic. It killed him eventually. It also killed his brother and his father. You can't even read a piece about Christopher Hitchens, another role model of mine, so much so that the introduction to my videos is plagiarized directly from him, without any reference to his drinking. Christopher Hitchens is a role model for his eloquence, but it's impossible to find any coverage of him that doesn't also report on his propensity to drink. And that was also a contributing factor in his own demise. He admitted that himself. This is all true of people like Anthony Bourdain that I mentioned a moment ago, and Ernest Hemingway, Hunter S. Thompson, Lenny from Motorhead. It's as if all of these people that we look to, like their alcohol use, their addictions gave them some superpower, elevated them above what the rest of us mere mortals can achieve. And I don't know how to feel about that now that I'm sober. It's difficult. In sobriety, I found myself jealous of that ability to be an addict and also be brilliant. I don't like admitting that. That's an uncomfortable truth for me, that admission, because it feels very close to saying, I wish I could drink normally like you. And when we say that in recovery, that's a dangerous phrase. We should not be jealous of somebody who can indulge what would kill us. It's a dangerous attitude. It's not safe for people in recovery to be jealous of people in active use. It's just not. It's a step away from relapse, I think. That jealousy is a red flag. Cool. It's taken a long time for me to swallow my pride and admit that I am not like my old heroes. I'm not built like they are. Where Christopher Hitchens, for example, could drink a bottle of whiskey for breakfast and then turn in a first draft that evening. For me, whiskey in the morning means asleep by lunch and then hospital by evening. Being jealous of that ability, romanticizing it, is dangerous. It's not safe. For me, at least. I've had to let go of a lot of the people I admired now that I'm sober, which is the same as saying I've had to leave a large part of myself behind. I've had to let go of the Hunter S. Thompsons and the Bukowskis and the Raymond Chandlers and the Jack Kerouacs and understand that those are not healthy role models for me. And I've had to replace them with people like Delirium Dirk instead. Steve-O from Jackass too, you remember that guy? It's hard to believe that that guy that I used to watch put a condom up his nose and pull it out his mouth and put Tabasco sauce in his eye, that guy has turned out to be kind of an inspirational role model to me. His ability to talk about his addiction and his sobriety is unmatched. There are very few who can talk about sobriety with the humility and the common sense that someone like Steve-O has. Especially considering how low his lows were. Like, he was almost unrecoverable, and he made it back, and now he's able to talk with great articulateness and eloquence about his journey, and I find that to be very inspirational. An unlikely hero to me. It's hard to find good role models, even for me, but for women it must be even more difficult. And for marginalised groups like people of colour or non-binary or LGBTQI+ people, it must be close to impossible to find leading lights and good role models. Especially when those groups already over-index, they're at higher risk than the general population of issues related to addiction and mental health. So, let's make the comment section below a collection of real, relatable, sober role models. If there's somebody that you look up to who's been useful to your own journey that you can look to, let us know in the comments below. And I'm particularly interested not in celebrity role models. I'm interested in real life, other YouTubers or people who don't already have a massive existing platform like celebrities do. If there's someone who you look up to who talks about sobriety really, really well, let us know. Put it in the comments. You can leave links as well. If you want to promote yourself, please do. If you leave links and it gets flagged as spam, I'll manually approve it after I've published this. The reason I'm more interested in the smaller platforms, the smaller people talking about this and not the huge famous celebrities is because it's been my experience that it's through the stories of people like Delirium Dirk that we see ourselves most clearly reflected. So, thank you for your time, Dirk. We'll see you on the other side. As always, like, subscribe, keep coming back, and I'll see you soon.